Welcome to today's webinar, courtesy of the Kentucky Small Business Development Center in Louisville. Discover no-cost, valuable business services to help you thrive, whether starting your entrepreneurial journey or scaling your existing business. We have the resources and expertise to help you succeed. For more information, please visit our website or text 502-977-5800. Thank you for joining us today. Feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions or engage with our speaker. Let's get started.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Dave Etkin. I'm the director here at the Louisville Small Business Development Center. Glad you guys are joining us today. And as you know, I'm always joined by my good friend and co-worker, Janet Flaw. How are you today, Janet?
I'm doing good, Dave. It's a lovely October day.
Yeah, it is a good day, good Tuesday. And we have a great guest today, a man who needs no introduction, who's a legend in his own time, one of our cyber experts. I think his best friend is ChatGPT, but he knows everything, and we really rely on him for anything technological, and he's going to join us today. But first, I also want to say that Kevin is also part of our staff, and he is a great resource. So we're all going to really benefit from our discussion today. But first, as always, just because we have just, as you have seen, struggled mightily with some technology, I just want to make sure that I can see you guys coming in. And as you come in, I just want to make sure that you can hear and see us. If you just look at the bottom of your screen, there's a little toolbar. If it's not, just hover over it. It should pop right up. You'll see the chat button. Just click chat. If you wouldn't mind just saying hello and tell us where you're joining from. Tell us your name, because that's the funnest thing I do every day, is see where we get everyone kind of joining us. Hey, Dave. Good to see you. I was out not too long ago and enjoyed a great movie at your place. Fantastic. Out there in LaGrange, the Sarbuck Family Drive-In. Check it out. Hey, Rob. Going to see you later on today. Ken, how are you? Steve, Rob. Hey, Chicago. All right. We've corresponded a little bit. I've checked out your stuff. Sue Ellen from Lexington. Hey, Katie. Katie's with the SBDC team in Berea. She's just launched a center out that way. Thomas from San Antonio. Man, I think you might have the distance award there today, Thomas, so congratulations. Let's see, Leslie, Wheelersburg, Ohio. Hey, Amanada. Good to see you again. Yeah, so it's really fun to see get people from all over. Really enjoy this part. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks for taking time out of your Tuesday to join us. And so, you know, one of the most important things you can do to protect your business is really focus on your cybersecurity, because we read a lot about cyber criminals really targeting big businesses, but I think they figured out that can be kind of hard sometimes. Those bigger businesses have the resources to harden up their tech. Not so much for small businesses. So small businesses are always at risk, and increasingly so. And I read a statistic, you can probably confirm this for me, Kevin, but if a small business is targeted by a ransomware or a cyber criminal, they are really likely to go out of business because of the financial hardships incurred by that incident. So.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely sad statistic for sure.
Kind of talk us through everything we need to know to protect ourselves and protect our business. Kevin?
All right. Okay, is everything working here, folks? Hopefully give me a thumbs up here if you can see my screen. I hope that is visible to you. Are you not able to hear me, Dave? Oh, I'm getting it loud and clear.
Yeah, good.
Okay, good deal. Good deal. Well, great. Thank you all again for that introduction, and appreciate the technical empathy here as we got things off today on a rough start, but we're here and we're ready to move forward. Always appreciate this opportunity to come and be with the Louisville Center and to be able to share some content. Usually it's about AI. Today it's going to be about cyber, because October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So I'm honored here to be able to share a little bit about cybersecurity best practices, but I really want to focus this session on what are some practical things you can do literally starting today to make your business more cyber ready, to make it more secure. And so we're going to give sort of a challenge here of I'm trying to do all of this on a budget of under $500. And I'll kind of walk you through some of these things. One of the pieces that the Kentucky SBDC prides itself on is we don't recommend or vouch or endorse specific products. So in this case, I'm going to give you several examples and several options to consider. And of course, every business is going to be different. Your needs are going to be different. So there's not really one cookie cutter approach or one size fits all. But I look forward to going through this with you. So I'll start off by saying that cybersecurity is a business issue, not just an IT issue. And too often we, as business owners, you may be so pulled in so many different directions, and you just have to realize that cybersecurity is a core business issue, especially just considering the way in which we do business nowadays. Almost everything is done online, and so as a result, that issue of cybersecurity is a very important one. Protecting your data, making sure that you don't get, lose data or there's not a ransomware attack. Those types of things can really be detrimental to your business. As Dave even alluded to, we often see those statistics that say, businesses that are susceptible or actually have a cyber attack on their business, many times do not recover from that, either for the financial loss that happened, or some cases they just lose the trust of customers. It can be a number of reasons that could cause it. So we don't want to see that happen. So we want to make sure that you're equipped and understand all the different resources you have available to you to become more cyber ready. Speaking of resources, one of those things is available at our website. It's the Data Assured program. This is a template that will walk you through preparing a written information security plan for your business. So it's available for free to download on our website. All you have to do is go visit KentuckySBDC.com/cybersecurity. And you'll find this template along with some other resources. We have this North Star toolkit that we call it. There's a bunch of different cyber resources here, some cyber do's and don'ts, information about ransomware, an acceptable use policy that you can roll out to your employees, mobile device security checklist, just all sorts of good resources here that you can download and customize and be able to use in your business starting right away. And we also have some on-demand training, some additional training in cybersecurity to help make sure that you're fully protected. So since this is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I wanted to share just a few quick stats that kind of support the need for cybersecurity, as if we didn't already know the need. But one of the interesting things I found in doing some research is this study from Coalition Inc., which says that this study reveals there's a stark disconnect between awareness, perception, and real-world protection. So as we look at this, we find that basically awareness may not be the real issue. It looks like here that basically almost 90% of business owners are either somewhat concerned or very concerned that about their business, being impacting their business through a cyber vulnerability or a cyber attack. So they're certainly aware of it, according to this stat. And then when asked if they believe their risk has increased over the past year, again, the vast majority said, yeah, we're either slightly more at risk or we're significantly more at risk. So again, it kind of reinforces the notion that maybe awareness is not the issue, but we need to still kind of harp on this point, even though it's sometimes maybe belabored a bit. When asked if their small business ever experienced a cyber attack, 56% said, yep, within the past 2 to 5 years. Interesting to me that only one no here, only 10% of the respondents said that their business had never experienced a cyber incident. So that's kind of telling again that helps us understand that small businesses are in fact a target. But conflicting information again, despite that high awareness, most small businesses still believe that they're too small to be attractive targets for threat actors. 64% saying that to be the case. So again, that's just not true. It's one of those things that we try to help correct and disprove that myth with small business owners. You are just as likely, if maybe in some cases not more likely, to be susceptible to a cyber attack. When asked how much time business leaders spend on cybersecurity per week, 2% said less than an hour. which probably is not a sufficient response or a sufficient amount of time. 57%. So the vast majority send between 1 and 10, which is a pretty big range. But again, I think if you're leading a business, hopefully you've got someone who can address this, maybe as their full-time role, or certainly as a big component of their full-time role. But I think it's clear that we have to devote some time to it, because again, it is a business issue, not just IT. All right, what about spending money? Did the money follow the concerns? Well, in this case, what percentage of your small business overall budget is spent on cybersecurity? And the majority, 54%, say between 6 and 10%. It's kind of otherwise pretty evenly split otherwise, but it's kind of interesting because if you look at larger enterprises, you'll oftentimes see maybe that 10% mark is kind of devoted to cyber. So here that kind of falls in line again, the majority being between 6 and 10, but still 22% saying between 11 and 20%. So this is clearly something you're going to have to put some resources behind, but you also want to make sure that you're not just throwing money away. You want to be real strategic and intentional with how you're spending the money. And when it came to what small businesses expect a cyber attack to cost, this one was a little more evenly distributed between these three answers. 30% saying less than 500,000, 39% saying, well, it's between $500,000 to 2 million, and 31% saying it's more than 2 million. And we'll look in just a moment at maybe some insurance figures to sort of compare the other side of that. What did it actually cost? And then, do small businesses think they're spending the right amount on cybersecurity? 59% saying yes, we are. 14% no, we're spending too much. 26% say, well, we probably should be spending more. So anyway, some good stats to kind of set the stage and hear what some of your peers and colleagues at other small businesses throughout the United States are saying about the state of cybersecurity. So now, as we turn to the agenda for today, what I really want to cover are essentially just three things: the human factor, which is such an incredibly important piece when we're talking about cybersecurity. Then some tools you can implement, practical things you can do starting today to actually make your business more cyber secure. And then also talk a little bit about network security, which is also, again, kind of related to some of the tools, but certainly a big part of cybersecurity is making sure your network's secure. So why do cyber attacks happen? What should be is really no surprise that money is the source of most of the reasons why cyber attacks take place. It's estimated that cybercrime will cost businesses up to $10.5 trillion this year, could reach as high as $15 trillion by 2029. Insurance carriers, going back to that claim issue, insurance carriers report an average loss of around $100,000 per claim, which I found interesting. That was a little lower than what I was expecting to see, but still, that's a considerable amount of money. The businesses who said they were hit by cyber attacks, 52% said they lost more than 5% of total revenue, and 15% saying they lost more than 10% of their annual revenue. Now, certainly there are other reasons here, as you see reasons 2 and 3 for why cyber attacks occur. Sometimes it can be really strategic and pinpointed, like for intellectual property cases. Hackers could maybe, particularly target a business specifically to get access to some data that they know that business has. We've seen that over and over again as well. And then the third reason, maybe a little bit smaller, but still exists. You've just got some people out there who do it for the ego, do it for curiosity, do it for fun, right? To see, can they make a business, susceptible to a particular cyber event. So those are the big three, though, that we tend to see over and over again. So to address the human factor, we really need to address the statistic that says up to 95% of cybersecurity incidents occur due to human error. Now, that stat I've seen vary depending on the source. Sometimes I see it as low as in the high 60s of the errors attributed to humans. But I think the big thing that we're seeing is hopefully it is an area that we can actually control. In other words, the more education and training we provide to our employees, our staff, our teammates, our partners, the better we can affect this particular source of the error. And so we want to make sure that you are aware of the additional resources you have to help train your people. As you see here, only 4% of cybersecurity budgets are devoted to employee training. I want to show you a couple of examples. One is free and one does cost a little bit, but it's an option for you, just so you know that there is an option to take to actually get your staff trained. The quote here, the most vulnerable part of any device is the person sitting behind it, is often true. And we need to address that. This is something we can definitely control. We need to train our people in order to do it. So the two solutions I wanted to share with you today, one is called nob4.com, and they have a tremendous resource library at their website. This one does cost some money for you to participate in, but it's really good to do things like test your employees, your staff, for phishing. So you can actually set up your company in the account, and they will send out on a regular basis a series of phishing emails to see if your people are clicking on links that they shouldn't click on. So y'all may have seen that in the past. You may have even experimented with some of these phishing tools. I know as part of the University of Kentucky, we get those pretty regularly. You never know when they're going to happen, but they'll send them out. And if you click on a link, then it tells you, oh, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have clicked on that link. Here's why. And we need you to go take this training now as a result. So it is kind of a way to reinforce this idea, again, about what to click on and what you shouldn't. It's one of those things we think people should know this, but clearly it's easy to be fooled sometimes. So KnowBe4 is a great service. Highly recommend them, and that you check them out if you're looking for a service like that. But as I mentioned, some of the businesses that we work with don't have the budget to support a service like that. So thankfully, there's the Cyber Readiness Institute. So at cyberreadinessinstitute.org, this is a free service, but it does obviously require some time because it is about training our people and making sure they understand access to these different resources and information. This is a screenshot of their platform. So as you go through the cyber readiness program, this would be what you would send your staff through. They would go through a structured program. It really does take them from beginning to end on all the things they should be aware about in regards to making sure they're not clicking on links, but more than that, all the other ways in which a business could be susceptible to a cyber attack. So it's a great foundational material for your staff to go through. And of course, it has everything you would expect, in any sort of nice online training. It's multimedia. It does give you, as the business owner, a playbook that you can use to really deploy this, and a structured approach. You can use it to roll it out. But the toolkit is very nice. It even gives the participants a certificate at the end. So it's a very, very thorough program to go through. About an hour a week, maybe, in terms of time commitment, but it's self-paced. So, and they don't have to be real technical to understand it. It's not going to go into a lot of real super technical details on here, but just a really good resource for you to check out. Now, there's really two parts of their program. There's the cyber readiness program, which is really geared more so for your staff, your employees, which covers all of the basics. But then you also get into, if you have a person on staff that you want to be the leader of your company's initiative, your cybersecurity initiative, there is a separate program for the cyber leaders. So this one, as you might expect, goes a little more in depth. It helps the person who is going to be in that role really understand that this is not just about the technology, it's about people, process, and technology. And so it helps equip them to better manage the cybersecurity for a particular organization. So it goes through kind of all the material that's covered under the regular cyber readiness program, but then a bit more about managing people, dealing with culture, and again, you don't have to be a tech person to be that cyber leader, but a great program as well. So now, as we shift a little bit to tools, we'll spend a bit more time here. I want to cover several different tools that we'll talk about, starting with antivirus. And it used to be, back in the day, this was really the only thing you had to worry about. You just had to know, okay, do you have an antivirus program? Yes. Okay, check, we're done. But things have changed. Now, there's a lot of different vendors when it comes to a lot of these programs we're going to look at. So I'm not picking favorites or showing, one is definitely better than the other. But instead, I just want to show you some options and some names in which you should be familiar with as you start to look at what works best for your business and what you're going to roll out as part of your cybersecurity initiative. Certainly, many of the names here are pretty familiar to people. I think a lot of people would probably have heard about Norton or McAfee, Trend Micro, Sophos, Bitdefender, a couple more of those, Malwarebytes. You may have seen these names, but clearly, it's one of those things that antivirus, of course, has changed over time as well, just with the new threats that come out. The one I want to show and highlight today is from Sophos. Sophos Antivirus is, again, a reputable company, been around for a while. And especially as a business, one of the things you're going to have to deal with is figuring out how to properly license or subscribe to an antivirus service that covers all of your devices. And so Sophos has and actually what you're seeing here on the screen is their home product. That's a very comprehensive product, and it allows you to secure up to 10 devices under one subscription, which is super convenient and very cost feasible, because in this case, the price I saw in it as of today is $45 a year, but that's for up to 10 devices. So that's one account. So if you're a small business with 5 to 10 devices in your company, this is maybe a great option to look at. Other companies, when you get into usually around the 10 device range, that's where you're going to see most of them branch off into their more commercial or business related products. And sometimes the product changes altogether because it gives you additional administrative controls and permissions. Sometimes it has more reporting features. But with that additional functionality, as you might expect, also comes an increase in cost. So when you look at other solutions from some of those companies we listed, those prices may be between $150 to $200 for 10 devices. And so that really, is part of the home versus business situation that you're going to encounter as a business owner. So in this case, for a really small business, I think Sophos Home would be a great value. It's certainly something that you could implement very quickly. Now, moving beyond antivirus is this concept of EDR, which is endpoint detection and response. And the best way to think of this is it's really more of a proactive solution to your security. This is where you would often see a company, especially if it has its own internal servers, they would definitely want to have some form of EDR, some type of EDR protection in their network. A lot of smaller businesses, on the other hand, may not have a need and may not be able to justify the cost right now to implement EDR. Solutions here are going to run from $500 to a few $1,000s per year. But this is, again, one of those that's more proactive. It's constantly monitoring your network for any sort of malicious activity, any sort of vulnerabilities. If something does happen, it can take action on its own to stop an attack. Those types of things are what we're talking about when we refer to EDR. So again, while it started out as maybe people just saying, well, it's sort of the next generation of antivirus, a lot of the same companies that you see that are providing basic antivirus software will also provide EDR solutions. So again, the price, though, is a bit higher. Yeah, David said, is it just PCs or do you include POS terminals? It really depends, David, on what they're running and sort of what type of software they're talking about. So it could be that if it's running an internal only type of software that connects to an internal server, it may not necessarily need anything. But if it is something that's connected to the web, then in that case, you probably are going to need some sort of protection because you're doing a lot of transactions at those point of sale. So that's a good question, though. It probably depends on the specific setup, of course, as to what it's running and how it's configured. But it's a great question for sure. So again, EDR, much more advanced than just basic antivirus. But if you have any sensitive data, if you're in a heavily regulated industry, if you have your own internal server, those are the types of things that are really going to make you say, okay, I need to invest in an EDR solution. Again, some of the companies, you'll see some of the same names. but also some other names, right? And so there are some big companies here, and usually they're focused on maybe at the enterprise level, securing hundreds of machines inside of a business, as opposed to a smaller business. But usually their pricing also kind of reflects, hey, if you have 5 machines and a server, there's going to be a package that they have customized for that sort of level. So again, EDR, a bit more advanced. Now, when we come to passwords, this is usually everyone's favorite topic because we all have a challenge with passwords, I think. You've probably seen a table similar to this at somewhere along the line. I just found this one yesterday from this company, Hive Systems, and it's just kind of interesting to me. I've always been fascinated by this. As you look at the table here and your own password, sort of do your own little assessment here. How long would it take someone to really, if they really wanted to brute force hack your password in 2025? And so this is, in some cases, it makes you feel pretty good. If you've got an upper and lowercase, password with 11 characters, hey, I'm at 2 million years. That makes me feel pretty secure. But at the same time, if you're using, 8 lowercase characters, 3 weeks, maybe feels not as secure as you'd like to be. And then this is always changing as well, because what they're talking about here is just a brute force attack. What we see increasingly is hackers will try to find out information about you. And if they're really trying to get your password, they may not spend time on a brute force attack. They may try to learn more about you in order to get some information that might help them come up with the password or something that you use for your password. But clearly, having a strong, secure password is important, always has been, probably always will be. But it's one of those things that as a business owner, you really have to be aware of as well, especially if you have employees. I've seen examples, and you've seen them too, where a lot of times passwords get shared among employees, which is never a great use case. You've also seen, the Post-it note written down with all your passwords on it, or the notebook where you keep all your passwords organized. The fact is that technology can really help us with managing our passwords. And so what I wanted to talk a little bit about here are password managers. These are very simple tools. It's just a piece of software that lets you store your password in a secure way. And the way it does it is you really have to only remember one single password. Now, it probably needs to be a strong one and a secure one. But what that one password will do is it will unlock your password vault so that you can use your various passwords at all the websites in which you need to use them. So you just need to know the one password. And then from that, it will let you into your password manager. And the password manager is really in charge of creating these really secure passwords for you, so that when you go to a website and it says, okay, you need to create a password, you just let the password manager create it. And it will create a very complex, secure password, and then it will store it so that you only have to remember the main password to get into your vault. Now, as with all these other tools, there's multiple providers here. Several of these, I've had personal experience with and can definitely say, yep, they're all really good. Keeper, Bitwarden, NordPass, Dashlane, 1Password. If you're in the Apple ecosystem, that icon in the middle may look familiar to you. That's the Apple Passwords password manager. That's part of your Apple device. So there's a lot of different ones of these, and it's important for you as the business owner to decide again which one makes the most sense. If your business has multiple Apple devices, then using Apple Passwords probably makes a lot of sense because it's already included in your account. However, if you're not, then you may need to look at one of these other solutions that can be distributed and managed across all of the different devices that you have. Cost of these varies, but usually you can find these password managers around $2 per user per month. Now, sometimes they may run a promotion or a discount for a certain amount of time, and so you might be able to catch a bargain. But for the most part, you can expect around $2 per user per month, which is kind of what I'm using as I'm going through. I'm kind of developing a budget here for us to look at the end. Some of the challenges, though, with password managers is it's like a self-driving car. People are reluctant to trust it, and also maybe reluctant to relinquish control. So it's one of those things. If you've got a password that you've already been using, when you go to a password manager, one of the things you need to do is change that password and let the password manager create a new one. And as you know, any bit of friction there in terms of setting that up can be frustrating enough for people to just say, well, okay, I'm done with it. So the worst thing to do is to use a password manager, and then every password inside that password manager is the same, because at that point you're paying for something that really doesn't help you at all. But the best thing to do is when you figure out which password manager you're going to use, you want to go ahead and at that point change all of your passwords, right? That's the best time to do it. Let the password manager do it. And then again, you're just remembering one strong password to get into your password manager. I see a question here. I'll go ahead and take real quick. It's about the Google Manager or Google Password Manager. It is free, right? It is multi-platform for sure, Ken. I've seen mixed feelings on it. I won't necessarily say it's bad, because I think anything is better than nothing. Anything's better than a Post-it note, better than having them written in a book. But at the same time, one of the things that becomes, as you really start to look into the details on the password managers, one of the things you'll look at is encryption. Is the password encrypted on the local device? Is it also encrypted on the host side? And is it encrypted when it's being transferred? So those things are kind of important. And I don't believe, at least, that the Google password manager is encrypted in all 3 states. It may, if it is, I would need to update my material. But I believe that's been the complaint that I've read before, is that it's not going to be encrypted. It won't have the same level of encryption as, say, the Apple password manager, which would also be free if you're in the Apple ecosystem. But again, I do think anything is better than nothing. So I wouldn't necessarily say, yeah, don't use it, but I just think you got to be aware of some of those limitations if you are using it. But password managers are kind of a big deal, and certainly I think important. As you have multiple people in your office, they're going to need access to certain programs, and you want to be able to make sure that they're not just sharing a password between each other as they get access to those. So next up is the topic of backups, and we're going to start with why are backups even important, right? Well, backups are important because hard drives fail. And is anyone, I guess the question really should be, has anyone never had a hard drive fail? That would be probably an easier question, because I don't think there'll be as many answers that would be the case. If you've never had a hard drive fail, just get ready, right? Because that probably means it's right around the corner. Hard drives fail over time. Hard drives fail for any number of reasons. In many cases, it is just due to time, and the parts wear out, or something hits it and causes it to go into a spin and crash. But clearly, hard drives will fail when you are least expecting it, and as a result, if you do not have your data backed up somewhere else, you're going to lose access to that data, and that is a big problem. So in addition to hard drives fail, maybe your computer fails. Now, that doesn't always mean that you lose your data, but sometimes it can be the case. Or it could be the case that you have to pay to have someone extract your data from those hard drives, which is not a cheap option either. Computers get lost, computers get stolen, they get infected with viruses and or ransomware, buildings burn down, floods happen. There's all sorts of bad things that can happen that cause us to really think about the reason to have our data backed up somewhere. So this is something that a business really needs to have a plan for, is where is your data backed up and how can you get to it? So how do you back up? Well, there's different ways, of course. One of them is just a point in time incremental backup. So it's just a snapshot that you can go back and say, oh yeah, well, this is my data as of yesterday afternoon at 3 p.m., right? And you can go back to that particular point in time and recover from that that exact time. They're not continuously connected. Now it says exceptions or cloud solutions. There's most of the solutions that you would find today would be cloud solutions. However, some larger businesses, enterprises are probably going to have a combination of both. They may have a backup server on site, and then they may also have some cloud backups taking place as well. But for small businesses anyway, it's usually a bit more simple. It's a bit more hands-on, if you will, in terms of making sure the backup happens. The big thing here is you have to make sure your backup is stored somewhere where your computer isn't. Because the bad thing of a fire or a flood or some other sort of physical damage or something getting stolen is really bad if your external backup software or hardware is sitting on top of the computer that gets wiped out. So the big thing is to make sure your backup exists somewhere where the computer does not. Back in the day, still use safety deposit box as the example. Some businesses still use this. They may have a tape backup that's been running for 30 years. And every night they have a courier swing by, pick up those tapes, take them to the bank, drop them off at the safe deposit box, and go back and rotate those out on a regular basis. The big thing though, for small businesses usually is, hey, maybe you've got more than one external hard drive and you're going to rotate those back. Maybe you're going to take one, back and forth between your home versus the office, back at home. No matter how you do it though, the big thing is eventually you're going to want to test these backups, because nothing would be worse than thinking you've got your data all backed up and secure. And then when the time comes to actually go through a restore process, having that backup fail, in other words, when it goes to restore. So you need to test those from time to time. Steve says when he worked in IT, all staff had tapes and tapes in the truck of their car. Yeah. Those tapes were sturdy though, Steve. they can handle that. No, not really. Not a great best practice, right? For those things to be just hanging out in the car. You want to make sure you're treating your data with the respect that it deserves. So again, there are different methods here. There's the cloud solution, which is almost always going to require a subscription. And then if you're a really small business and you just have a couple of machines in the office, you can go with an external hard drive. I mean, I've seen, businesses with 10 computers use external hard drives for backup purposes, especially if they have a specific software that runs maybe on one or two machines, and they really just want to take care of that and not back up everything. So with that, you do have obviously an upfront cost in order to get started with a data backup. One of the things you have to think of though is how big of a hard drive do you need if you're going to do a backup? Well, the general rule of thumb is anywhere from 2 to 3 times the size of the data that you want to back up. But that can obviously change very quickly, and certainly needs to be adjusted depending on the type of business you're in and how you're going to rotate through these external hard drives. If you're using an Apple machine, you're probably just going to use the software that's built in called Time Machine. It lets you connect to an external hard drive and handles the backup software for you. If you're running Windows, you can choose from any number of different backup software that will allow it to perform that backup at a scheduled time. But oftentimes what you'll find is when you buy the hard drive, they'll come with some version of a backup software. Don't know if it's going to be the best version. It may just be one that's sort of a freemium model where you have to eventually pay to use it. But usually it's pretty easy to find the software to manage the backup schedule on the Windows side of things. There's just many more options. I went ahead and included a screenshot here from Walmart. If you're looking for a cheap backup hard drive, an external hard drive to use, it can be found for $100 or less for a 4 terabyte, which is a great size for a lot of businesses, and certainly be able to handle a lot of backup of data. And then on the cloud side of things, these are again a little easier to deal with. You pay for the subscription. But you don't have to do much yourself. You don't have to carry a hard drive back and forth between home and work or put it in a lockbox. These are going to take care of that offsite component for you. And, they start around $100 a year. And usually it's tied to a single computer. So if you have let's say a server where, maybe you're even doing a file server, don't know that many small businesses would do that, but if that were the case, you could get by with maybe doing a subscription to any of these services that would do unlimited backups on that single computer. So in other words, they're not really concerned about how much data, how big the drive is. It's really just, is that computer licensed? And then we'll do an unlimited backup on that for the entire period. So pretty cost feasible until you get into multiple computers that you need to do backups on. Now, this is always an interesting time to kind of compare backup versus cloud storage. Okay, those two things sometimes are used synonymously, and some people will say, well, it's the same thing, but it's not really. So cloud storage is oftentimes where you save some of your documents, but maybe not all of them. Maybe, you put everything in a documents folder, and that's where everything gets, synchronized to a service like OneDrive or iCloud or Google Drive or some of these others. But it's not always the case, and it's not always a true backup. What the cloud storage providers are really great at is accessibility, giving you access to your files no matter where you're at, right? You don't have to have physical access to the computer that you're using because your files are stored in the cloud. It's also helpful for scalability. Just as your needs grow, you can, purchase more cloud storage and store more files there. It does, in many cases, like some of these services, they have more file sharing and collaboration features. So if you need to share files between multiple people, and if your office has 10 people in it and they all need access to the same files, a cloud provider can be a really nice way to do that without having to invest in a server that sits physically inside of your office. Some of these concepts even, they sound old now. How long have we been talking about the cloud, and it's been a while since I've seen a business that actually had an on-site server, if you will. But cloud storage prices will vary, again, depending on the ecosystem you're in. You may go with Apple. They have it starting at 99 cents a month. You see that one usually on your phone, takes up all that space. OneDrive from Microsoft, $5 a month for 1 terabyte. Google Drive, $2 a month for 100 gigs. So they have a certain free plan as well. And then Dropbox, which is really more of that collaboration component, starts at around $10 a month for 2 terabytes. But the thing you have to do there with Dropbox is you're going to have to license Dropbox for as many users as you want to do the sharing and collaboration with. So it's a little bit different model for sure. So those are some of the providers. And again, it really depends on your business, the hardware you already have. Are you already subscribing to Microsoft 365? If so, OneDrive is probably going to be the way you go. If you're already in Google Workspace, you're probably going to stick with Google Drive, right? It just kind of depends. So these are the examples. This is not necessarily security related, just so much as to kind of drive home the point. If you're already paying for Microsoft 365, then you probably need to go ahead, just for cost purposes, and look at utilizing OneDrive, right? Because it's already integrated. You're going to get a certain amount of data storage provided as part of your basic subscription. Same way with Google Workspace, right? If you're doing that, if you already have a custom Google Workspace set up for your business, you already have some storage or cloud storage provided per user. So it wouldn't make sense to switch and go with a different provider. Apple's solution is a little different for businesses. They have this Apple Business Essentials. Of course, Apple is very heavily into phones as well as other devices. So what this does is allows you to control all of those devices. So the reason I bring this one up is really to highlight some more of the device management capabilities that exist. So let's say you have a staff of 5 people, you assign each one of them a laptop, an iPad, and an iPhone, right? How do you manage that equipment? Well, you can do that through Apple Business Essentials, including things like, okay, this device has been lost, right? You can actually track it and figure out, its location based on the fact that it's tied to your Apple Business Essentials account. So it gives you some additional control pieces there to be able to manage your fleet of devices. But some of that is also tied to data storage as well. And then when we get into the network side of things, this is the one that the prices can vary wildly. Again, if you're talking about a very small office and you're just there. Maybe it's a dental office and you're providing wireless internet for both your employees and your patients. One of the things you're going to want to do is have a wireless router that will let you set up a separate guest network. You never want to have that traffic commingled with folks who are just visiting your business, or who maybe even are sitting out in the parking lot and just using your Wi-Fi, right? So having a simple wireless router that has a guest account, some of those guest accounts can even be scheduled, like, hey, the guest account shuts off at 5 o'clock in the evening, right, when the office closes, are very simple ways to, again, protect your data and make sure that your business isn't susceptible to hackers or other nefarious actors who might be trying to get into your network just because they were able to get into your Wi-Fi. So that's a very important thing, to isolate that traffic. And as you can see, it doesn't take a lot of money if you want to pursue that. But again, you can certainly spend quite a bit more without looking too hard. There's a lot of different solutions here, but that's at the very basic. So how did we do? The subtitle of this, presentation was, how do we protect our business for under $500? And I will admit that's become a bigger challenge over time. It was easier to do this last year, but prices have gone up. So I did this based on, again, a 10 user company. And so what you can see, what I've got here is the antivirus cost. That's a bargain at $45 for the year for 10 devices to be protected by Sophos Home. The password manager, I went with NordPass. Almost all of them had a similar price though. So it was really just whichever one you wanted to choose. So NordPass was, I think, right at $1.99 per month per user. So we're at $238 for the year. The cyber readiness training, of course, was free through Cyber Readiness Institute. And then for cloud storage, I was just using the free Google Drive, because you get up to 15 gigs just on the free Gmail account, right? So that's a pretty good amount of cloud storage. And then I said, well, we're going to assume this business is going to do a local backup for their software. So we'll get that external hard drive, which is just a one-time purchase. And we'll get the Wi-Fi router as well to make sure everything is buttoned up as far as the wireless network is concerned. So you can see we come in at under $500. This would definitely be, though, sort of the bare bones option, right? You could really go quite a bit more than this. If you had a server, if you needed endpoint protection, if you wanted to, pay for a cloud storage service with additional storage, or one that you can manage, right? There's going to be additional costs there. Really does depend, though, on your business, what ecosystem you're already involved in, and then from there, what your specific needs are. But that's kind of a basic rundown, though, of sort of where we would be with this budget. And we'll come back to questions here in just a minute. But before we get there, I want to also tie in just this concept of AI, because AI is changing everything. And Dave and Janet, no, you can't get me wound up talking about AI, because I won't stop. But this idea of, that it's not just the good guys using AI. So how do we remain cybersecure in an AI world? I want to allude you to, or show you, this one quick video that talks about the need to have a safe word with your family because of all the things that are happening right now with AI. So hopefully you can hear this video here as I play it.
Your family is going to need an AI safe word. In the past year, we have started to see an increase in AI voice cloning scams. Basically, with just a single audio clip of someone's voice, scammers can use AI to identically impersonate someone's voice end to end. That means they can use your voice to call up family members and ask for emergency money. And this voice cloning technology has gotten so good, it's practically impossible to determine if you're getting scammed. And this only gets worse with video clips where scammers can create full-on deep fakes of individuals. This is why experts are starting to suggest that people come up with AI safe words. Basically, if you're ever talking to a family member and you're suspicious that you're getting scammed, you have a safe word in your family to ensure that the person on the other line is actually the person you think you're talking to. Taking it a step further, I think we're gonna need similar precautions inside of companies. It'll be easy for AI scammers to impersonate managers and call up their employees. Ultimately, it's a safe precaution to have a conversation with your family and come up with an AI safe word. There's only going to be an increase in the amount of AI cloning scams, and I think this is the right precaution to take. I'll continue sharing the latest in AI news, so follow along.
Yeah, something we hadn't thought about, right? Are these deep fakes? How easy it is to clone someone's voice or to make a video of someone as well. So clearly, that's a new attack vector that businesses need to make sure they're aware of, and so sometimes just as simple as having sort of some safe word that you share with your employees to say, okay, if you ever get a request from me and I call you and tell you to go buy 25 gift cards and give me the numbers, you're probably going to want to make sure that that is actually me. So it is kind of a new, again, dynamic, this just being scammed, right? But it definitely falls under the umbrella of cybersecurity and making sure we can prepare ourselves for it. This is kind of from our AI talk. I just wanted to put this up here. If you're interested in AI or learning more about it or want to be notified of new workshops as we launch those in the AI space specifically, you can take a screenshot of this QR code and it'll take you to a little Google form where you can sign up and get more information and get added to our list. And with that said, Dave, Janet, I think I've actually ended under time for a change. I didn't go too long,
No.
but I will kind of open things up for questions. I think we got a few in the
Yeah.
chat as well. I'll go ahead
Yeah,
and
we got a
stop
couple in
sharing.
the Q&A too. This is a good one too, because I've had discussions on this as well. But some people say that antivirus from outside the US, like Russia or China, is risky. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I've heard some of those things too. It's certainly, I think, something to think about. And I think I would probably, especially if I was buying this for a business, I'd definitely do some research. I'd want to be able to look into the reviews, especially because there's a lot of different sources for reviews, and many of them, as you all have seen, they're really just paid affiliate links, right? Somebody just
Right.
writes an article in order to get a commission. So you really got to go with some of those trusted reviewing companies, the old standards of PC Magazine, ratings.com is great, New York Times, some of those folks that really get into this, are kind of what I try to rely on and really make sure I can back it up with, somebody who says, yep, this one's good and here's why.
Mm-hmm. You don't really know though, because there could be it could be fine forever until a backdoor appears and was put there for that purpose. So
That's true. In fact, that was the case. There used to be a password manager that I used for years, and they had two data breaches like within 6 months of one another, and I was like, okay, it's definitely
Right.
time to find a new provider.
Yeah. You touched on this, Kevin, but what's your opinion on browser-based password managers versus those that are made by outside companies?
Yeah, I think it's better than nothing for sure. It's definitely better than just writing the passwords down. The only thing I was really concerned about on some of the browser-based ones, especially like Google and Chrome, is the most notable one, right? Is I really want to make sure that the encryption side is really secure, so that it's not just encrypted on their side, but it's also encrypted on my side. The other downside with like the browser is if you're in an office and you have a bunch of people, I mean, it becomes more of a susceptibility to, somebody could just walk up to your computer and log into whatever you've got. Whereas some of those others that may combine, biometrics or may require you to log in, each time are probably a bit more secure. But again, I think probably, again, anything's better than nothing. Kind of depends on specific use case. I don't necessarily say no, that one's bad. But certainly, I think some of the others are a bit stronger.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, Ken. Let's see, I think we talked about this too. Is OneDrive backed up on its own? Meaning, is there a risk of getting hacked and blocked out of OneDrive?
Yeah, there's always a risk, right? I don't think that's the other thing we can take away from this. There's always going to be a risk because in this case for OneDrive, it's really tied to your Microsoft account, right? So some of the vulnerabilities, and I don't get into this too much, but the example that came up very recently in AI was with these agentic browsers. There's a way to hack that browser because it's using AI and force it to essentially turn over your credentials. And so that's another use case. If they got your credentials to your Microsoft account, well, then they've got the keys to everything, right? So I think the risk is probably not significant, but it's never, it's never zero. But otherwise, OneDrive is, I think, a good solution because it is it's certainly convenient. It's easy to use, easy to configure. It's one of those you don't have to think and take a lot of extra steps, which is also important.
Yeah. Dave wants to know about working at home to do payroll, vendor payments, and all that. Do you suggest I use a network separate from my other, for kids and like a VPN or, what else? What do you think?
It wouldn't hurt, for sure, Dave. I think where I've always tried to advise people on VPN usage is, especially those who are traveling a lot, VPN is just really nice, and it really does give you that added layer of security. If it's your home network, and if you've otherwise, got things locked down and you're just doing work from home, I don't think it's necessarily, critical that you have a VPN. It certainly wouldn't hurt, but it's not one of those things that I would place really high on the list of have tos, because otherwise, like you said, you've got a separate, network already, you kind of network traffic already segregated. So that's a good, step there.
Yeah. Sharing a network with kids and business, I think that'd be really risky, because you never know what they're going to get into.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, especially if they're gaming,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things they're, going back and forth there, but even just traffic, right? And just managing the network connectivity reasons alone are often a big reason to go ahead and segment that traffic out.
Yeah. Let's see. Can you put that slide up with the website link on there again on the cyber readiness class, Kevin?
Oh, for the readiness, it is, yes. Let me get back to that right one. It's cyberreadinessinstitute.org. It's kind of a difficult
put that in the chat for everybody there, if you wouldn't mind, Kevin.
That'll
be
be
the easiest
easier
thing to do.
Yeah, and it's a great one because, like I said, it is free, and again, you can sign up your company and get people enrolled in that starting right away.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Good. Kevin, this has been really great. You are a fantastic speaker, and I learned so much and took a bunch of notes. I'm sure everybody else did. And really thank you for spending time with us today.
It's my pleasure. And yeah, you all will get access to the slides. I saw a couple of people asking about that. So I think Janet will send those out along with the recording. So if there's something you didn't get to jot down, it'll be in the slides. And definitely check out our website as well. We do have some good resources there. So if you're looking for some additional resources and how do I really roll this out for my company and do it on a budget, I think we can help you with some of that material.
The best about all this, Kevin, is that none of it's all that hard. We don't have to have an expert come in and set all this stuff up. I mean, it's just super easy. Download this, go to Walmart, buy that. It was pretty step by step. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's certainly gotten a lot easier over the years, right? And especially with most of these services being cloud-based, it's just, give them your credit card and sign up, and then you just download the software.
Right.
So they make it easy for sure.
Yeah. Kevin, thank you. I can't thank you enough. This has been fantastic.
Well, excellent. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Thank you, Janet. And thank you everyone for attending. Great questions.
And thanks for joining us for another Toolkit Tuesday. We will see you next week. And if you just hang on for just a second when we click off, you'll get a little survey. We really need that information. We want to bring you the information that that you want and you can find helpful. So that helps us do that. So have a great Tuesday, everybody. And we will see you next week. Take care.
Thanks.